Have you ever left a conversation feeling tired? Like someone just sucked the energy right out of you? Maybe it was a quick phone call with a family member, a short coffee with a friend who always complains, or even just scrolling social media for 5 minutes out on the outside. Everything seemed normal, but afterward, you're left asking yourself, why do I feel so drained? Here's a surprising truth. The biggest threats to your energy aren't the obvious people who push your limits. Instead, the real energy drains in your life are happening through subtle, invisible exchanges that fly completely under your radar. The ones who smile, seem polite, and yet somehow, after you see them, you feel wiped out. They steal your energy through things you can't see, like silent guilt, fake smiles, and hidden pressure to act a certain way. I'm talking about the unseen energy thieves that operate in your daily life. The unconscious projections, unspoken expectations, and hidden psychological patterns that silently siphon your mental and emotional energy without you even realizing it. Carl Jung, one of the most powerful minds in psychology, called this energy your psychic energy. He believed it's your most precious resource, and most people are leaking it every single day without knowing. In this video, you're going to learn the hidden ways people drain your energy, how your own mind might be giving it away, and how to protect your energy using simple tools based on Carl Jung's ideas. If you feel tired after talking to certain people, if you say yes when you really want to say no, or if you just want more energy for the things that actually matter, this video could change everything for you. Let's dive in. Let's talk about something that affects every part of your life, even though you can't see it or touch it. I'm talking about your psychic energy. When Carl Jung talked about psychic energy, or what he called libido, he wasn't talking about anything sexual. He was talking about your mental and emotional energy, the invisible fuel that powers everything you do, from getting out of bed in the morning to solving problems at work to being present with your loved ones. Think of your psychic energy like your phone battery. You start each day with a certain amount of charge. Every activity, every interaction, every decision you make uses up some of that battery. Some things recharge you, while others drain your battery faster than you'd expect. The big difference? You can see when your phone is at 10% battery, but you might not notice when your personal energy reserves are running low until you're completely exhausted. Here's what makes this really important. Unlike your phone, which you can just plug in any time, your psychic energy is truly limited. When you use it up in one area of your life, it's not available for other areas that might matter more to you. Your energy naturally flows toward whatever you give your attention to. This happens whether you're choosing it consciously or not. That funny cat video takes energy. The worry about that comment your boss made last week, that's draining your energy too. The person who always seems to turn their problems into your problems, major energy drain. Many people unknowingly give away their energy to people, situations, and thoughts that honestly don't deserve it. They pour their limited energy into worrying about things they can't control, trying to please people who can't be pleased, or maintaining relationships that never give anything back. What you might not realize is how directly your energy reserves impact everything that matters to you. When your energy is consistently drained, your creativity suffers. Your productivity takes a nosedive. Your ability to be present with your family decreases. Even your physical health can be affected, since everything in your body requires energy to function properly. Have you ever felt completely exhausted, even though you got plenty of sleep? That's a classic sign that you're experiencing energy leaks in your life. Your physical battery might be charged, but your psychic energy has been drained. This is why learning to protect and direct your energy might be one of the most powerful skills you can develop. When you understand how to manage your psychic energy, you're essentially learning how to manage your life force itself. Now, you might be wondering, if this energy is so important, why haven't I heard more about protecting it? That's exactly what we're going to talk about next, the unseen energy thieves that are draining you without you even knowing it. Let's look at the surprising ways your energy gets stolen every single day, and why some people and situations leave you feeling completely depleted even when nothing obviously bad has happened. So now that you understand how precious your psychic energy really is, let's talk about the hidden ways it's being stolen from you every day. Have you ever noticed how some people leave you feeling completely drained after just a short conversation? Or how certain situations seem to suck all the life out of you, even though you can't put your finger on why. There's actually a hidden reason why setting boundaries feels so impossible with certain people, and it has nothing to do with what they're saying or doing on the surface. Let's start with something Jung called unconscious projections. This happens when someone places their unacknowledged qualities, feelings, or problems onto you, forcing you to carry their emotional baggage. For example, maybe you have a friend who's really insecure about their appearance but won't admit it to themselves. Instead of dealing with their own feelings, they constantly point out flaws in your appearance or make little comments about how you look. They're projecting their insecurity onto you, and handling their emotions becomes your job. That's exhausting. Another major energy thief is unspoken expectations. These are the standards you're trying to meet that were never clearly communicated. Think about a boss who seems disappointed in your work, but won't tell you exactly what they want. Or a partner who gets upset when you don't do things a certain way, but never actually told you what they expected. You end up spending huge amounts of energy trying to read minds and guess what others want from you. It's like playing a game where no one tells you the rules, but you still get punished for breaking them. Then there's what Jung called persona maintenance. Your persona is the mask or face you show to the world, the version of yourself you think others will accept. When you're constantly keeping up a persona that doesn't match who you really are inside, it creates a massive energy drain. Imagine you're someone who's naturally quiet and thoughtful, but you work in a job where you have to be super outgoing and talkative all day. By the end of each day, you're completely exhausted from maintaining that mask. That's persona drain in action. For many of you watching, especially if you're naturally empathetic, you might be experiencing something called emotional contagion. This is when you literally absorb other people's emotions without realizing it. Have you ever been in a great mood until you spent time with someone who was anxious or angry, and suddenly you felt anxious or angry too? That's emotional contagion. You're taking on their emotional state, which means you're also taking on the energy cost of processing those emotions. In today's world, we can't ignore digital energy drains either. Every notification, every scroll through social media, every angry comment section you read, these all create invisible energy leaks. Studies have actually shown that the constant task switching we do on our devices is tremendously draining to our cognitive resources. Finally, there's what some people call the psychic vampire effect. These are relationships where the energy flow is consistently one-sided. You give and give, but nothing ever comes back to replenish you. Maybe it's that friend who only calls when they need something, or the family member who turns every conversation back to their problems. The tricky part is that none of these energy thieves are obvious. They operate below the surface, which makes them much harder to identify and address than someone who's clearly crossing your boundaries. But why do some people struggle so much more with these energy drains than others? That has a lot to do with your unique boundary style, which is deeply connected to your psychological makeup. Let's look at how Jung's ideas can help us understand your specific boundary challenges next. Now that we've uncovered those hidden energy thieves, let's talk about something really fascinating: why you respond to boundary situations the way you do. There's a surprising connection between your childhood experiences and your adult boundary patterns. And what your struggle with saying no reveals about your inner psychology is pretty eye-opening. Jung believed that we all develop certain patterns or archetypes that influence our behavior. When it comes to boundaries, these patterns can help explain why setting limits feels nearly impossible for some people, while others do it with ease. Let's look at some common boundary styles through a Jungian lens. First, there's a people pleaser. If you're a people pleaser, you probably have permeable boundaries, meaning your limits are easily crossed because you're afraid of disappointing others. You might say yes when you want to say no, or take on extra work even when you're already overwhelmed. From a Jungian perspective, this pattern often stems from a deep fear of abandonment. Somewhere along the way, you learned that being loved meant always saying yes. Maybe as a child, you noticed that approval came when you put others' needs before your own. Now, as an adult, setting boundaries feels risky because on some level, you worry that people will leave if you don't keep pleasing them. Then there's the martyr. If you identify with this pattern, you tend to sacrifice yourself constantly for others. The difference between you and the people pleaser is that your self-sacrifice has become your identity. You pride yourself on how much you can endure and how much you give others. For martyrs, setting boundaries often feels selfish or wrong. You might think, if I'm not sacrificing for others, then who am I? This pattern frequently develops in childhood when you were praised for being so good and so helpful, to the point where your worth became tied to how much you could give or endure. Next is a perfectionist. If this is your style, you set impossibly high standards for yourself and others. You're constantly striving, constantly working, constantly trying to achieve more. This creates an internal boundary problem. You don't know when to stop pushing yourself. Jung would say that perfectionists are often driven by a deep fear of being ordinary or inadequate. You learn early on that your value comes from achievement and flawless performance. The idea of setting boundaries on your time or energy feels threatening because it might mean producing less than perfect results. Then we have the caretaker, similar to the martyr, but with a key difference. You find your worth specifically through helping and healing others. You're drawn to people with problems because fixing them gives you purpose and identity. For caretakers, setting boundaries feels like failure because it means admitting you can't fix or save everyone. This pattern often develops when you took on a caretaking role very early in life, perhaps caring for younger siblings or even emotionally supporting your parents. One of Jung's most important concepts was the shadow, the parts of ourselves that we disowned or repressed. Your shadow plays a huge role in sabotaging your boundary-setting efforts. For example, if you disowned your anger and buried in your shadow because you were taught it wasn't acceptable, you'll find it nearly impossible to access healthy anger when someone crosses your boundaries. You need that energy to say no effectively, but you've cut yourself off from it. Or maybe you push away your own needs and desires into the shadow because you were taught they were selfish. Now, when you try to set boundaries to meet those needs, your shadow sabotages you with guilt and shame. Understanding your dominant boundary archetype is crucial because each pattern requires a different approach to healing. The people pleaser needs to work on their fear of abandonment. The martyr needs to develop identity beyond self-sacrifice. The perfectionist needs to address their fear of inadequacy. The caretaker needs to find worth beyond fixing others. By recognizing your patterns, you can begin the work of creating healthier boundaries. But how exactly do you do that? Let's look at some practical techniques for reclaiming your energy next. Now that you understand your unique boundary style, let's talk about practical ways to reclaim your energy. I'm going to share several powerful techniques, including one that doesn't require saying a single word, and it might be the most effective tool you're not using. Let's start with something Jung would have strongly approved of: the active practice of silence. This isn't just about being quiet. It's about strategically using silence as a powerful boundary. In our constantly connected world, we feel pressure to always be available, to respond immediately to every message, to have an opinion on everything. But what if you simply didn't? What if you intentionally created periods of silence in your life where you're unavailable to others' demands and expectations? This could mean turning off your phone for certain hours each day. It could mean taking a full day each week where you don't schedule any social obligations. It could even mean simply pausing before automatically saying yes to a request. Silence creates space between you and the demands of others. In that space, you can check in with yourself and your own needs before responding. You'd be amazed how many boundary violations simply disappear when you don't immediately make yourself available. Next, let's talk about energy auditing, a systematic way to identify where your energy is going so you can make conscious adjustments. For 1 week, keep a simple log of your activities and interactions. After each one, note whether you feel energized, neutral, or drained. Be specific about who or what was involved. At the end of the week, look for patterns. You might discover that certain people consistently leave you feeling depleted, or that specific types of activities drain you more than others. This awareness is a first step toward change. You can't redirect your energy flow if you don't know where it's going. Once you identify the energy drains, you can make intentional decisions about how to handle them. Maybe you need to limit time with certain people. Maybe you need to delegate specific tasks. Maybe you need to have an honest conversation about expectations. The solution will depend on the specific drain you've identified. Now let's talk about projection retrieval, a fascinating concept from Jung that helps you recognize and take back your projections from others. Remember how we talked about other people projecting their stuff onto you? Well, you do it too, we all do. When you're unusually triggered by someone's behavior, it's often because you're seeing a quality in them that you disown in yourself. For example, if you get intensely angry when someone else is being lazy, it might be because you have a disowned part that wants to rest and do nothing, but you don't allow yourself to acknowledge it. The technique is simple but powerful. When someone really bothers you, ask yourself, what quality am I seeing in them that I might be denying in myself? Once you identify it, you can begin to reintegrate that quality in a healthy way rather than projecting it onto others. This immediately reclaims huge amounts of energy that was being lost in projection. Shadow integration work is closely related to this. The parts of yourself that you rejected or disowned, your shadow, actually contain tremendous energy and power. But that energy gets used against you when your shadow remains unconscious. To begin integrating your shadow, pay attention to your strong emotional reactions, your recurring dreams, and the qualities you strongly dislike in others. These are all clues pointing to your shadow material. Once you identify an aspect of your shadow, the goal isn't to get rid of it, but to bring it into consciousness and find healthy expression for it. For example, if you've disowned your anger, you might practice expressing it in appropriate ways rather than either exploding or suppressing it. Dreams can offer profound insights into your boundary issues too. Jung considered dreams messages from the unconscious, revealing aspects of ourselves we don't consciously recognize. Pay special attention to dreams about being invaded, trapped, chased, or otherwise having your space violated. These often symbolize boundary issues in your waking life. Keep a dream journal by your bed and write down your dreams as soon as you wake up. Look for patterns over time. Finally, let's talk about what I call the sacred no, the practice of turning down requests as an act of self-respect and energy protection. Many of us were raised to believe that saying no is rude or selfish. We need to reframe it as a sacred act of self-definition, a way of honoring your limits and values. Every time you say no to something that doesn't align with your true priorities, you're saying yes to yourself and your own well-being. Practice saying no without lengthy explanations or apologies. A simple, "I'm not able to take that on right now," is sufficient. You don't owe anyone a justification for your boundaries. These techniques might feel uncomfortable at first, especially if you spent years ignoring your own limits. But with practice, they become second nature, and the energy you reclaim will transform your life in ways you can't even imagine yet. Now, let's talk about the ultimate boundary, the journey toward becoming your true self, what Jung called individuation. We've talked about specific techniques for protecting your energy, but now I want to zoom out and look at the bigger picture. What if setting boundaries isn't just about protecting yourself from energy drains? What if it's actually about becoming who you were truly meant to be? This brings us to one of Carl Jung's most profound ideas, individuation. Jung believed that each of us has a unique self that's trying to emerge throughout our lifetime. Individuation is a process of becoming your authentic self, the person you were designed to be before the world told you who you should be. And here's the fascinating connection. Every boundary you set brings you closer to your true nature and purpose. When you say no to things that don't align with your values, you're saying yes to your authentic self. When you protect your energy from being drained by unconscious patterns and other people's expectations, you're making space for your true nature to unfold. Think about it this way. Your energy is a fuel for your unique journey in life. When that energy is constantly being siphoned off by energy thieves, you don't have enough fuel to travel your own path. You end up on detours, following other people's directions instead of your own inner compass. This is why boundary setting is actually a spiritual practice. It's not just about saying no to a request or limiting time with draining people. It's about defining who you are and who you are not. It's about claiming your right to be your authentic self in a world that's constantly trying to shape you into something else. Now, there's an important distinction we need to make between healthy boundaries and defensive walls. Boundaries are permeable membranes that allow good things in and keep harmful things out. They're flexible and responsive. Walls, on the other hand, keep everything out, the good and the bad. If you've been hurt in the past, you might have built walls instead of boundaries. The problem is that walls not only keep out pain, they also keep out love, connection, and growth opportunities. Part of the individuation process is learning to lower your walls while maintaining clear boundaries. Self-compassion is essential fuel for this journey. Many people struggle with boundaries because they're harsh with themselves. They feel they don't deserve to have limits or to prioritize their own needs. Jung would say that developing a compassionate relationship with yourself is crucial for healthy boundary setting. When you truly care about yourself the way you care about a dear friend, setting boundaries becomes an act of love rather than selfishness. There's also a fascinating link between clear boundaries and enhanced creativity. When your energy isn't being drained by other people's demands and expectations, your creative powers flourish. You have the mental and emotional space to explore new ideas, to play, to experiment. Many artists and writers talk about needing to create a sacred space for their work. That's essentially a boundary that protects their creative energy. The same principle applies to every area of your life. When you protect your energy, you create space for new possibilities to emerge. Perhaps most surprisingly, healthy boundaries actually improve your relationships rather than harm them. Many people worry that setting boundaries will push others away or create conflict. The opposite is usually true. When you have clear boundaries, you show up in relationships as your authentic self rather than a resentful, depleted version of yourself. You're able to be fully present because you're not secretly angry about having your energy drained. You can give freely because you're giving from a place of fullness rather than emptiness. The people who truly love and respect you will adjust to your boundaries. They may need time to get used to the new you, who says no sometimes, but healthy relationships adapt and often grow stronger when clear boundaries are introduced. Those who consistently resist or violate your boundaries are showing you something important about the nature of your relationship with them. Their response to your boundaries is valuable information about whether they truly care about your well-being. The journey of individuation through boundary setting isn't always easy. You'll face resistance from others and from parts of yourself. You'll make mistakes as you learn. But with each step, you'll reclaim more of your energy and move closer to becoming who you truly are. And that journey toward wholeness is what life is really all about. We've covered a lot of ground today, diving deep into the invisible world of psychic energy and boundaries through the lens of Jung's psychology. Let's bring it all together now. You now understand that your energy is your most valuable resource, more precious than money or time. It deserves your protection and conscious direction. You've learned to identify the subtle, hidden ways your energy gets drained through unconscious projections, unspoken expectations, persona maintenance, emotional contagion, digital drains, and one-sided relationships. You can recognize your personal boundary style based on Jungian archetypes, whether you're a people pleaser, a martyr, a perfectionist, a caretaker, or a combination of these. You understand how your shadow might be sabotaging your boundary-setting efforts. You have practical techniques to reclaim your energy and set healthier boundaries, from the active practice of silence to energy auditing, projection retrieval, shadow integration, dream analysis, and the sacred no. Most importantly, you understand that setting boundaries is not selfish or mean. It's actually essential for becoming your authentic self and fulfilling your unique purpose in this world. By practicing these concepts, you'll experience more energy for things that truly matter to you. You'll have greater clarity about your purpose and direction. And surprisingly, you'll develop deeper, more authentic connections with others as you show up as your true self rather than a depleted version trying to please everyone. This journey of reclaiming your energy and setting healthy boundaries isn't a one-time event. It's a lifelong practice of honoring yourself and your limits. There will be setbacks and challenges along the way, but with each boundary you set, you reclaim a bit more of your power and move closer to wholeness. I'd love to hear from you in the comments below. Which energy thief resonated most with you? Is it the unconscious projections, the unspoken expectations, or perhaps the digital drains that are affecting you most? Sharing your experience might help others recognize their own energy drains. If you're ready to dive deeper into understanding your boundary archetype, I've created a free guide that will help you identify your specific pattern and give you tailored strategies for your type. You can download it using the link in the description below. If you found this video helpful, please hit that subscribe button for more content on Jungian psychology and personal growth. I share new insights every week on how to live with more authenticity and purpose. Remember, reclaiming your energy isn't selfish. It's necessary. Every time you set a healthy boundary, you're not just saying no to an energy drain. You're saying yes to becoming who you truly are. Thank you for joining me today. I'll see you in the next video.